I appreciate everybody, I guess, tuning in today and taking a break from Netflix to learn a little bit more about spray booths and projects. And really the big goal for today is to try to give you guys a quick crash course into real life, real world scenarios to make projects successful. With that, if you're still pretty new to us, here's a big picture of our facility. We've been in this facility a few years now. It's 150,000 square feet over on the east side of Dallas, over in Rockwall. And I know travel is a little tough right now, but I highly encourage everybody, if you haven't had a chance to come down, or if you're an end user, to come down, see what we're making. We've got a bunch of equipment in our facility, and just really meet the people that everybody works with on a daily basis. So with that being said, under that roof, we really have three separate businesses that all operate together. The first main business segment is our core catalog equipment. You can see that there's a lot of this information on our website in terms of pre-engineered design equipment. The second business segment is our engineered projects. This would be something more like a conveyorized system or just a very highly custom piece of equipment. The third segment that all ties it together is our RP filtration products. And I'm going to show you guys a little bit more of each of these segments here. Our core catalog equipment is really just something that we've tried to pre-engineer for a lot of reasons. One, to help time to market. A lot of our general industrial core catalog equipment can ship within about 7 to 10 business days. We have a lot of batch ovens that really show the working volume and a lot of the components that would go into it to really help out the engineering time up front. Also, you can see there's a picture of a locomotive there. Whether you're painting a locomotive or just a model train, we've got a core catalog piece of equipment that would match that. And in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see a pass-through powder booth. Even though it is set up to be on a conveyorized line, it's something that we've just pre-engineered. And a lot of times people will see this equipment and say, hey, that's perfect, except for I need a crane slot or I need a few more feet. And that's all part of our catalog equipment and process. And that's a little bit more about what we'll get into later today. But to give you also an idea of our engineering projects and really our capability, here's a picture of an offshore oil rig booth that we did a few years ago. Again, it's all about coming up with solutions and making it work in the real world. Whether you're painting a model train or an offshore oil rig, hopefully we can help make the project successful with you and minimize any kind of surprises. With that, if you're wondering what that picture is in the upper right-hand corner, I haven't counted them out, but I believe that's about a 7-stage washer. So when we talk about these projects, it's great how they all sort of come together, but it really takes a team, like a chemical team, an install team, to really make these things work. And again, we'll get into some of that later today. Lastly, I made the comment about, our RP filtration products tied all together. In 2017, we had the acquisition where we brought the research products filtration line in-house, integrated it into our facility down there in Rockwall. And last year and this year, we've been adding more resources such as filter specialists, new products and programs. And one of those programs has really led to us being able to provide a 5-year warranty on our equipment by using this. We have a lot of application-driven solutions for filtration and the sheet metal. So for us, it really just gives us more of a well-rounded offering to our distribution group and also end users. Now, with that being said, this is sort of a fun presentation for me. I've been with Col-Met for about 9 years, and I've gotten to see a lot of creative solutions. Maybe they were application-driven solutions, or maybe they were just some guy wanting to, put something somewhere. But there's a lot we can learn from each other, and especially from past mistakes. So with that, the quick overview about what we're going to be going over is really from project conception to construction. Doing things remotely via Zoom and webinars, it's hard to really teach somebody how to put a spray booth together. But what I can discuss is really the steps to eliminate that risk and where those opportunities for bad surprises to happen that can ruin projects and also ruin profitability. We'll take a look at field conditions. And with that, we're going to focus on liquid booth guidelines. We're going to look at the facility resources needed, the current field conditions, and also ductwork layouts, air makeup guidelines, placement, discharge orientation, environmental conditions, and then powder booth and oven guidelines. These are really just a good focus, whether it's catalog equipment or if it's an engineering project. It really all typically starts with the same step. And that first step is you get a new lead, you get an opportunity. I'm not sure if you guys can see it well enough, but that little picture back there says not responsible for overspray. So if you pull up to a customer's facility, or if you have this outside your own facility, chances are you've got a problem. You know what the problem is, but you need somebody to come in and offer a solution. So with that, it really comes down to determining the size, the needs, where's it going to go. And once you get an idea about what it is you're looking for, it goes to the request for quote. Now, Col-Met's put a lot of time and energy into developing what we call our form stack. And our form stack is an online portal that you can click on, and it has drop-down boxes of what size, what voltage, what phase, what offsets. And it's great to get that information because it really helps us design that piece of equipment and that solution for those needs. But it also gives you an idea of those questions to ask, and it prevents any of these headaches from happening down the road. Typically, once you give us all that information, you'll get your quote back in about a day. Once you get that, once you go through all the revisions, everything looks good, this is going to lead to a purchase order. And I guess that picture behind that is probably around the holidays, maybe Thanksgiving, when people still shook hands, but everybody's excited about getting that purchase order. With that, we have another system of checks and balances that makes you confirm the voltage, the phase, the fuel. And what we do with that is we start engineering and designing what the needs are, whether it's core catalog equipment or an engineer project. We take that, we can add the ductwork, we can implement the offsets. We've got a group of engineers that also work directly with end users and distributors to interact to make sure that, communication is flowing freely. People are explaining, this is what I meant by an offset, or here's what, that was intended to be. So we can try to get those drawings as accurate as possible. And with that, you can take those drawings and integrate them into your facility layout. Whether it's a new build or an existing facility, those approval drawings are going to show you dimensionally how big the support seal is going to be. Where's the air makeup unit going to go? Is there an offset needed that you realize once you put it in that layout? Maybe there's going to be a door interference. And this is a great stage where that end user and distributor are going to review and revise as needed. I probably shouldn't advertise this, but Col-Met, has a stance that we can only do so many revisions until we start charging engineering. It's in the time I've been there, I've never really seen us charge more for engineering during this phase because it's always about getting it right, and we understand plans change. So once those drawings look good and are submitted, they get signed. Once the signing is done, it's essentially approved, and everything looks accurate, the dimensions, the facility, everything's set for it. That signed drawing becomes that contract between us, the manufacturer, and distribution and end user. Whatever we talked about during that quoting phase and whatever revisions we've made all leads up to that. And then from there, our manufacturing is triggered, buyouts are in order, steel is being cut, the process is happening. Once that happens, that's the fun part. We get to make it, we load it up on the truck, and now it's time to go to work again. So who's going to unload the truck? When will install start? Is startup needed? This is really, ideally, all these questions would have been scoped out prior between the distributor and the end user, so everybody's on the same page. Maybe a Gantt chart's created there's just a lot of things we could do to try to minimize any type of surprises. So I'm a big fan of quotes and learning from experiences. And unfortunately, this is an accurate quote, but it also is a blanket quote that a lot of distributors call me with almost on a weekly basis. So the booth delivered, and yesterday my customer installed an overhead crane. And if you're familiar with booths, you know that an overhead crane is really the nemesis of the booth due to ductwork and offsets. So that goes to my other favorite quote from Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And again, what I'm hoping to give you guys today is sort of a list of questions and a little bit of a experience wrapped up in a few minute presentation, so everybody can become nimble and sort of bob and weave through these surprises and these headaches to prevent any of them from happening to you. So taking a look at the actual installation guidelines for just a liquid spray booth. What are some of the issues that could have happened to make it an unsuccessful install? The drawings were approved, and then maybe the site wasn't correct. Maybe something changed. They decided that they were going to put an additional welding table in, so then the location of the booth changed. That means you might have a different obstruction and a different set of overheads. Maybe the measurements were just wrong to begin with. Maybe it was a new build, and somebody gave you to the bottom of the trusses and not the overall top of the deck of the roof. So then offsets are maybe need to be added, and with that can impact your performance. And I could really talk about that all day, or just do an entire presentation on that, but we'll hold off on that. As far as voltage and phase, you guys are probably going to hear me say this about a dozen times, but a lot of times we get the same issue where, hey, we quoted it as a 230 3-phase, but it turned out it was a single phase, or it was 480. There's always ways to overcome that, but it always comes at an expense. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't have that built-in expense for those surprises. Does the piece of equipment that is being installed meet those electrical codes? If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see an exhaust plenum or an IBC chamber. If people were just to buy this and put it up in their facility, now they've created a spray room. Does your customer understand the difference between a spray room and a spray booth, and what needs to be meant with ductwork and explosion-proof motors and sockets? Did somebody actually look at that floor condition? Is this going to go into a barn, which is an interesting one. I had a customer try to put an oven in there. Our equipment, whether it's a booth or an oven, does not come with a built-in floor. You can get a floor if it's spec'd out, but a lot of times these just bolt to an industrial concrete floor. With all that being said, as these projects are being put in, if there's offsets needed or something that's going to hold up the show, an experienced install crew with about 4 guys, rental equipment, is about $2,500 a day. There is not a worse feeling than waiting on a $90 piece of ductwork while you've got 4 to 8 guys hanging out and just twiddling their thumbs waiting to finish the project. So during this approval process, and you can see that approval drawing up there on the top right, we can catch those and catch the offsets and catch the dimensions and the obstructions that might not work. And all you got to do is just have somebody, ideally your end user, will be able to review it and understand it, and they'll sign off on it. Some of the very basic things to look for, again, verify electrical voltage and supply with the phase and ground. Just a common voltmeter will take you pretty far. Verify the fan rotation. This is a big one. You got a 50-50 shot. These fans, oddly enough, still move air if they're spinning in the wrong direction. And sometimes it's hard to tell if they're going in the correct rotation. There's stickers on there to verify that, but it's one of those things you just got to take a look for before you spend a day or drive another 300 miles to go see that somebody actually wired up a fan backwards. Same thing with fuel type, natural gas or propane. Pressure and volume. We've got some safety interlocks built into our equipment and controls. I'll show you a little bit later to help verify these things. So with the level floor, okay, so my concrete's a little banged up. It's got some issues, but I'm just painting on top of it. Maybe my paint will smooth it out over time. Okay, I've seen people actually take that approach. The problem is when you actually go to install this equipment, we pre-punch our panels for easy nut and bolt assembly. And if that floor isn't level, you're going to have a hard time filling all those bolt holes. Not to mention your doors might not truly be square. So then everybody gets upset about, hey, it's not working, or it doesn't seal correctly, dust is getting in. Well, it's because it's sort of, built on a miniature golf putt-putt course with peaks and valleys, highs and lows. Now, to remedy that, it would be great if they could re-pour concrete and smooth that out, or they could just shim that up or create a curb for that equipment to sit on. And that's a great sort of quick field solution install to keep that going. Now, the other thing to note is if you're looking at that facility floor, okay, maybe the concrete looks good, but maybe it's not plumb and level. If it's not plumb and you have a large truck booth going in there, you now have a heavy set of doors that want to swing open on one end and swing closed on the other. So it looks like a ghost is in there painting, and nobody wants that, especially with the safety concerns and issues. Ductwork fails. This is, again, a whole compilation of something that we could talk about all day, but this is one of our favorites. We sold a pretty straightforward booth, and the big concern was it just wasn't moving air. The fans, correct rotation, voltage phase, all that's good. Just what's going on. By the time we actually put the vehicle in park, we could see what the issue was in that facility. Offsets, elbows, transitions, all that creates static pressure. And not knowing that during that quoting phase will lead to poor performance of the equipment, non-compliance. But again, if we knew that during that quoting phase, we can come up with a solution. Even if this is the only opportunity to run ductwork, and that's what they had to do, we could have potentially gone to a vane axial fan versus a standard tube axial. The kicker is that vane axial fan is substantially more in cost. And again, that's just a surprise nobody wants after the fact or after the sale. Manifold of exhaust ductwork. You guys will have a handout of this, and this is sort of a clipping from NFPA 33. Everybody wants to do it because they want to minimize penetrations in the roof and offsets. There is a way to do it. It's an extremely small opening booth or a small piece of equipment that could do that. And ultimately, it just doesn't work. And going to this slide, these are some good pictures of what does work. Now, our simple rule is no manifolding of exhaust ductwork. Keep it simple. There's a lot of issues when you start designing how that's all going to flow together, how that's going to tie in. And again, looking at some of these pictures, these are great examples of ductwork done well. The problem is during that install phase or that initial design phase, if there's an incorrect reading on that roof height, you now have one mistake that's going to be made 14 times on a large spray room, or 6 to 8 times on a side downdraft. Air makeup units. Air makeup units seem very complex, but really, again, it's going to take fresh air from outside. It's going to heat it, and it'll either dump it into the building or the booth. Simple enough. The problem is that clearance, placement, people run short on shop space, so they really try to pack stuff together. And again, whether it's a propane or natural gas, that'll determine the orifice size of that burner. And one of my counterparts here, unfortunately, went out and had to go help somebody out to try to change that. And I believe he actually hand drilled each of those. Again, nobody wants to do that. It wasn't recommended, but it was sort of hey, everybody agrees that they're going to accept this as the solution. It's just really not a great way to do it. And I know my counterpart there would have much rather spend his weekend doing something else. But with that aside, looking at air makeup units, you've got to also understand that when these things use gas, do they have enough pressure? Do they have enough volume? Is there an oven downstream in that gas line or upstream? Can these things operate at the same time, or is it going to drain all of those facility resources. With that, specifically looking at the picture in the right-hand corner, our air makeup units are very advanced in terms of controls. Each one is typically a custom design. And with that, we have an opportunity to put ductwork exiting in different locations. Now, doing a vertical end discharge like that picture there on the right provides the unit to get close to the building, but if it's not installed correctly or the ductwork isn't sealed, it allows for water and moisture to drip in. And again, nobody wants to go and pull a burner out and drain water out of it. With that, hypothetically, if this is installed in Pennsylvania in July, yeah, that looks great. That's not a problem at all. But come January, if you get a 5-foot snowdrift, the intake of that air makeup unit could be packed out and not get fresh air. So you as the distributor or end user really need to see the invisible of how this equipment is going to work and how it's going to work for your process. This is another sort of fun one just from travels. You can see here's an air solenoid valve actually put into a 2-inch gas line. One of the tells that this shouldn't have happened was that you have a half-inch solenoid valve that bottlenecks a 2-inch. Really, the best practice is never reduce pipe size or duct size. Again, we can't really harp on that enough. We do have a tech department standing by to help answer questions if somebody isn't sure about where something goes or what to do. Another safety check. I believe this person actually wanted to, download an app from their local energy provider and actually see if they can get more fuel brought to them. But we've got an app, kind of. It's a check sheet. But we do have these check sheets for AMU startups during the install phase, just to make sure that everything is happening in the order it should. And if everything is checked off, install is really a breeze, and it makes the equipment happier. It doesn't allow for any future faults. When I say that, it minimizes any future faults of happening because the burner is set, the pressure is set correctly, diaphragms and valves aren't being destroyed. Another good solenoid valve fail is going into the powder equipment. This is just another fun one to show that even in our powder booths, even though our collectors are pre-wired, programmed with VFDs mounted, people still have an issue sometimes understanding what it is to get those things up and running. Looking at our cartridge collectors, the most common issue that people have is usually months after install, they go to replace their cartridges and then they say, hey, these things are blinding out. They're not working very well, and I'm buying final filters every couple of weeks now. What gives? Well, if you, again, look at what it is we're providing initially, our 52-inch cartridge collectors have a filter surface area of just under 400 feet if you were to pull that media apart. Now, a lot of others will be cheaper and less costly because they have a third to even a half of that surface area, and that just creates blinding out and a higher consumable cost. Same thing. Nobody wants to send a crew 300 miles to go swap around filters. Our research product filters, you can see, has a slip paper with a poly back. It's important to understand how that filtration works. I'm not going to get into that today because that would be Trey Peavy's territory, and he doesn't like me giving a spiel. So we do have a webinar for that, though. Installation guidelines for ovens. Consider this again, your voltage, your phase, your gas. The picture that's dead center there, you can see the fan. It looks like there's either a lot of dirt, dust, and grime. Our ovens are extremely industrial rugged, and with that, they've got a burner that's got a forced air fan attached to it for combustion. If your shop is dirty, if you have a ton of powder migrating around, you'll essentially be pushing that powder through those burners. So cleanliness is a big thing, potentially pre-filtering the air going into those burners. All these things can offset that, but you, as the distributor or end user, can hopefully see these things before that goes in. And you can make these recommendations so nobody's disappointed with performance down the road. One of the other biggest calls we get is about ductwork in the ovens. Our ductwork has an H nozzle slot that is adjustable, And what it does is it can direct that air for uniformity. If people don't set that, which you can see in both those pictures that they're slightly open in the center one where the rack is, that allows for that air to certainly go through and better heat transfer. But the picture there on the right, they're a little closed off. Somebody tried to open them a little bit, but what happens is that velocity comes out there, and you could potentially knock that powder off those parts. And we also have another good webinar that talks about heating and curing products. And with that, we actually do have an app for that. Seriously, our ovens and our controls are some of the best in the industry. Our smart control panel literally will show a picture if anybody's ever having an issue during startup. And you can see right there, dead center, hey, check your gas pressure. And we have, valves built in where you can just go say, hey, this is coming or that's going out. With that, you can use our smart connect and connect to a mobile device. And you can actually monitor what's happening and see what's going on. And if you're completely lost, you can hook it up to your local area network, and our technicians at our facility can monitor what's happening, and we can walk you through to get you up and running. With that, oven fails are always unique. It's really hard to fail whenever you're making a pizza, but I will say, the secret sauce is usually not welding slag and grinding material. So, while we do make ovens, we don't recommend them for food prep at this time. And that's sort of the quick tour of things to look for during installations.
Thank you, Chris. Excuse me. We'll now open it up to questions. So if you have any questions, please type them into the toolbar there on the right, and we'll make sure we answer them. Before I start reading the first question, I just wanted to remind everyone before you leave today's webinar to please download your handout there on your toolbar. Appreciate that. And then 2, you'll be receiving a thank you note in about an hour after this webinar. And in there, you'll have a certificate of attendance. So please make sure you download that as well before you send off that email or put it in the trash. So let's go here. Let's see. Our first question, Chris, is how high does the exhaust stack need to be outside of the building?
Good question. Good rule of thumb is it needs to be 6 feet clear of the highest point of that building. Your local authority might have something different. The state of Texas requires 1.5 times from the floor to that peak. So rule of thumb, 6 foot, but check with your local jurisdiction to see if you need more.
Okay. Let's see here. Our next question is who should approval drawings be returned to?
Approval drawings. So whoever sends those approval drawings, one of our engineer managers is usually a great point of contact for that. As long as they can get back to either, I believe, Ryan or Travis. Those are the top 2 guys. There are some other regional managers that do get them here and there, but ideally Ryan and Travis from approvals. And I believe that they even have a separate approvals at Col-Met SB account that will receive those.
Okay. Our next question is where can we get the apps that you talked about?
Good question. I believe we have some good links on our website, and I actually just recently got a new phone, so I got to get some of those on my own. But I believe there's some links to our website that can walk you through them.
All righty. Another question here is who is actually supposed to sign the approval drawings?
As far as the approval drawings, we always recommend the end user has a chance to review and understand what it is that they're looking to get. So we always recommend that. There are some times where it's a larger project or maybe a general contractor involved, and some distributors do sign those. But typically, an end user principal or a distributor principal is who we recommend.
Okay. Looks like we have one more question here. Does Col-Met offer service?
I'm sorry, can you say that again, Judy?
Does Col-Met offer any type of startup service?
Absolutely. We actually have some promotions going on with our ovens right now, with startup included. But with that, we do have service techs that do that, and we always recommend it between air makeup units and ovens.
Okay. There aren't any other questions at this time, Chris. If you wouldn't mind, while we're waiting, please, if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to continue typing them in. And I'm just going to go through the next few slides here while we're waiting to see if we have any other questions. This is the Col-Met Who to Call list. It can also be found on the Col-Met website. But on the right is a map kind of showing the territories the regional sales managers are responsible for. And then there on the left is their contact information. So just thought this might be helpful since everybody will get a copy of this handout. Next slide, please, Chris. Here is the copy of the Col-Met website. Chris had mentioned that there's a lot of good information on the website. Please, anything, if you need information that you can't find there, please send an email to marketing@colmetsb.com and we'll see what we can do to help. Right there is a list on the right-hand side there you'll see is also a copy of all the upcoming webinars. If you didn't get the invitation in the mail, you can always sign up, register via this the Col-Met website there. Next slide, please, Chris. Again, here's a copy of the webinars as well, a little bit bigger, just so you can kind of see. Again, we're offering them at 2 different times each day. Each Wednesday now we're going to 1 webinar per week. And I think what we're going to do is probably at the end of May, starting after that, we're going to continue the Col-Met Academy, but we'll start going to probably 1 webinar a month, just to kind of keep everybody up to, in the loop with everything that we're doing at Col-Met. And then the last slide there, Chris, I think is the Col-Met YouTube channel. Here's where everything will be posted. All the webinars, like I told you today, would be recorded. They've been posted here, and as well as some other very helpful videos that we've put together so far. So please, if you haven't been to the Col-Met YouTube channel, please visit the site. And if you sign up to subscribe to our channel, you will know every time we upload a video, you will get an email telling you that we've uploaded a new video if you'd like to watch it. And it looks like, Chris, we don't have any other questions, so we're like right on time here. We can wait another minute here to see if there's any questions. I see someone does have their hand raised. Trying to figure out what I can help with here. The gentleman who has his hand raised, there we go. Can you go back to the first page, Chris? I guess the question is can you go back to the first page of the presentation?
I believe
Not sure.
So. I'm just going to do it old school here, so apologize if I make people car sick.
I'm not sure what it is. Let me just see if I can find out what he was. I'm just trying to see what it is he might be looking for. Because
sure.
Is it the Col-Met building or what he might need here? We can always go to the Who to Call page, Chris. I'm sorry.
Oh,
they wanted to see the Who to Call page. Also, you will be getting a copy. If you download your handout here, you will have a copy of that Who to Call list, as well as you can also find on the Col-Met website. I think that answers all the questions. There you go. Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate that. I think this answers all the questions. Let me double check one more time if there's one more question. I think that's it. So that would conclude our webinar for today, and we really do appreciate everyone joining us.
Great. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.